Welcome to Discover Ramona, where we showcase the people, places, and businesses that make Ramona the best place to live. I'm your host, Jan Ryan, and today I have Roy Toft with me with Wild Ramona, who just made that amazing book. So excited to have you here.
Happy to be here, Jan. Thanks for having me.
And looking forward to, I know we just got your copy of the book and you are touring around to a lot of places where people have the opportunity to hear you speak and look at the book.
Yeah, I need to sell some books. And on the side note, it is nice just to finally get in the community. Having a job as a wildlife photographer and a kind of a tour leader, I spend a lot of time out of the community. And I've been in Ramona 20 years living here, but this is almost my first chance to really spend time and going to venues, talking to locals. And so that's a nice bonus doing the book.
And lucky Ramona, because you have so much life experience. I just talked to you for a little bit, and it's just fascinating how you ended up National Geographic photographer, now your book, but you do safaris. I mean, it's a ton of travel.
Yeah, the industry, being a wildlife photographer, there's a lot of, people don't really understand what's involved, and it's changed through the years. 10, 15 years ago, being a wildlife photographer meant you were on assignment for magazines, doing stories. So they're paying you to be on location a week, 2 weeks. If it's National Geographic, it might be 6 months or a year. They tend to have a little deeper pockets, so those projects are longer. And then you're also producing content for stock imagery, so you're selling images to anybody that needs a photo. And that's really changed in the last 10, 15 years. Most of us that have had a career as a wildlife photographer for 20 or 30 years, like myself, we've switched over to leading tours primarily just because the industry doesn't support making a living from making pictures. So it's kind of actually a nice transition for me to be able to bring people in the field. Most of my clients are photo enthusiasts, although you don't have to be a photographer to go on safari in Botswana with me. Everybody's a photographer in Botswana. So,
of course.
That's kind of my career now is traveling with clients to destinations all over the world.
I love that. And you told me too how much things have changed from when you first started photography, how you had to have lighting and everything perfect.
Yeah, we went from, shooting slides, which is you're not seeing what you're getting, right? Those early cameras, if you remember, the film in the camera is what they put a little piece of cardboard around, and that was the actual photo. So you never knew till 2 or 3 weeks after you're home and you get things developed. And so, the curve, the learning curve, you had to really know your profession, your art, because there's no redos. You're already home from your trip. And the cost, one roll of film back in the days was basically film with processing about $10 a roll. So that makes out to 25 cents per picture. And so you couldn't fake it. You couldn't just shoot 1,000 pictures and hope you got one. It's just not feasible. So yeah, it's a little different now where you're looking at a TV on the back of your camera and you can make adjustments. Those basics of photography are still there, of course. You need composition, you need an eye, you need to know what light is doing. But it certainly is, it's a little easier now. Yeah.
I can't imagine being on, on location and trying for that perfect shot and realizing. So you had to do it right, or otherwise you could have lost that whole trip.
And just think about this. What I remember is the stress level, because you didn't know if you got the frame, the shot you need. So you're continuing the shoot. You're, worrying because,
right.
Anything, the light could have just been off. You could have missed that frame, the shutter speed just couldn't have been fast enough, and maybe that's going to be a blur. Right. And you're just there's a lot less stress shooting nowadays, which actually translates to a lot more having fun with photography for my clients. You look at the back of your camera, you nailed it.
Right.
You don't have to worry, have a cocktail, enjoy, we got the shot.
And then adjust it.
And adjust it later, which there's a lot more freedom for adjustment later. So it's never been more fun to be a photographer. And so it's kind of nice to have transitioned to more of relaxed, leading people on trips, being a host, and not have to have that pressure of coming back with a story after a week of being in the field. They don't care if it rained all day. They're like, we paid you for a week to be there. You better come home with the goods. And you're only as good as your last shoot when you're kind of, doing magazine work. If you kind of blow a shoot, you're kind of crossed off the list.
Wow.
So it is a lot of pressure.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. And I can't imagine these trips. I'm hoping we can join one of these days, but
come join us.
Okay. We're in. And the other thing you told me I found really interesting are some of not the studio shots, but you were talking about, what was it? A lion jumping from rock to rock, how they set those up.
Right. So much wildlife photography, it's, you're looking at a cover of a magazine, and some of those pictures, they're so amazing, and they're so amazing that they're not true. Yeah. We're dealing a lot with that in AI now, but we've dealt with it for the last 30 years in normal photography, even before digital, because they had these things called game farms. And basically it's an organization that has captive animals. They'll breed them, and they have their mountain lion that they raise that's it's habituated, totally habituated, but it's, I never want to say domesticated, but it's a pet.
Yeah.
Basically, it's kept in a cage. It's brought out by trainers. It knows its marks. Kind of like the old movies. The Disney movies, the Marty Stauffer days of wildlife filmmaking. A lot of not true things going on in those movies. It's not a guy sitting in the woods for years to get that mountain lion, attacking that deer. Like in some of those early, it's you wonder, how did they get 3 angles of that mountain lion catching the deer? Wow, I wonder how that happened. And it's set up. You have your trained mountain lion, you release the deer, however kind of wrong that is. Yeah. That's how that stuff was done.
Wow.
And for the still photography for magazines, it was bringing a mountain lion out to Sedona and having a trainer on the other side with a little piece of meat, and that mountain lion jumping the gorge. And of course, everybody just sees that. They never explain how it's done in the magazine. It is just the most amazing shot. How long did that photographer stay there? Well, he was there for an hour, And the unfortunate part of that for photographers that don't do that, like myself, there's no incentive to actually go out and spend years to get that mountain lion shot, because everybody, it's ingrained in their mind, it's not even, your shot isn't even as close as this one. Of course not, because it's real.
Right.
So those real, mountain lion shots are so much more difficult to come across. And that's why the cover of the book, which you're going to see, is
you will see that for sure.
That mountain lion on the cover of my book, Wild Ramona, is so special for me, because I've never seen a mountain lion in Ramona.
Wow.
But I have amazing pictures of mountain lions in Ramona because of the camera trap technology, the setting a studio in the field and having a motion activated camera that the animal trips its own picture. And so I think that's why the book maybe is getting, as much positive feedback, is because that imagery is so different. You can be close, you can be wide angle, it's lit very nicely, kind of like we're lit in this studio. That's kind of how I've lit the scenes in my backyard in the valley in Ramona, is so you have a beautiful scene. And so it's compelling. It's different, imagery.
It's so real. I mean, it's real.
Yeah.
And it's right there in our backyard, which is fascinating because it's amazing what you capture there. I've looked through your book so many times, and we're going to show the pictures. So, I mean, the bobcats, the foxes, it goes on and on.
Yeah.
And there are such beautiful images.
Yeah. And, it's wildlife. I think most of us know it's there if we're into wildlife at all. But you just don't get a chance to see it. They're secretive. Even coyotes are so common. We hear them a lot. and you get a chance to maybe see one glimpsing, running across the road, or if you're driving on Rangeland Road near grasslands, you might see them out in the grasslands area pretty commonly. But things like bobcats, which, I have a couple bobcats. They're territorial, like a lot of predators, so there's never too many of them. You don't have too many of predators. They regulate their own numbers by prey density and not wanting their like kind around, right?
Most people don't know that. So sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and I hear people say, like, oh, God, we're just overrun with mountain lions. And that can never be. You can never have overpopulation of a large predator because they need to eat. They eat a lot. And they don't like each other. So, a mountain lion is not going to want a neighbor. And they'll fight to protect that territory. So literally, the mountain lions that you're going to see in Wild Ramona, in my book, I have literally a pass through our valley once a month of a mountain lion.
Wow.
There's not enough space and not enough prey for him to live there. This is part of his 200 square mile range that he's walking or she's walking. Little smaller ranges for females, but you're never going to have, if someone sees a mountain lion in their backyard, he's not going to be there tomorrow.
Yeah.
He's 20 miles away. He's 40 miles away by the next day.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And people don't know that, right?
Right.
Generally, I guess they don't because, I saw a mountain lion and now I got to worry. You don't. They're gone.
That's amazing. I would feel the same way. It's so good to know these things.
Yeah.
And the other thing you told me too, which I think I talk to people that are afraid of mountain lions all the time if they're hiking or whatever, but you said if they smell you, they're going to go the other way.
Yeah, I mean, a mountain lion where we live, around people, if it's not afraid of people, that's a mountain lion that's not going to last very long. I mean, we're not very tolerant of predators. We know how frail we are. We have amazing brains, but we can't do much. Our teeth, our claws, we're not much of a physical presence. So, the mountain lions that live here, they're all about avoiding us. If you get to see one, treasure that moment because once again, I've lived here, grew up in Poway, was always out on my motorcycle looking for snakes and all over those hills in Poway in the 70s where there was no houses. Never saw one then. Lived in Ramona 20 years. Never seen one. So if you see one, instead of, the knee jerk of, my gosh, my life's in danger.
Right.
How about just, wow, I get to see this large predator that we still have in our local community that rarely ever causes any negative impact. It's doing its thing. It's keeping those deer populations down. It's keeping the rabbit population down. It's being one of our wild Ramona neighbors, which I appreciate. And the book is all about getting other people to appreciate that.
And that's a huge takeaway. If you see that, enjoy it, appreciate it, don't.
Yeah, you don't need that fear reaction. It is something that's more powerful than you. But isn't it great to be on the planet where there's things more powerful than you? I mean, when I'm in bear country, I don't need to see a bear, but it heightens my awareness. And that, that essence of living in a really amazing place when there's large predators that are still walking.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
Yeah, we can't always just feel safe all the time. It's good to have a little bit of fear in our life. If it's fear based out of just knowledge that this is an animal that I need to do the right things around, right? I can't be. And we've all seen the videos. It doesn't even have to be a predator, right? We see the videos of people in Yellowstone, the selfie people in Yellowstone with the bison. That's the Darwin Award.
I would stay away.
Yeah, it's good to keep your distance. So yeah, I hope people appreciate. That's hopefully what the book is all about, is appreciation, not fear.
Right. And I remember when I first saw you. I mean, I knew who you were before, and when I first saw you, had posted a picture on Love My Ramona, and I think my comment under your picture was, "Do you know who this is?" So it's so cool that you were telling me how you ended up taking more photos in Ramona.
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, my life was a lot of travel with both, doing just imagery and now leading trips. And COVID came along and really changed that. Luckily for me, I could, push my energies and my talents to do something positive during that time. And since I was grounded, couldn't travel, canceled all my trips for 2 years. And I decided, let me get back to my, I have some history of doing camera trapping. That's once again where you put a camera in the field and the animal takes its own picture. Because I'd done a project with National Geographic on tigers, assisting the amazing photographer Michael Nichols. And it was a 2-year project doing tigers. And my main job as his assistant was running the cameras in the field, so the camera traps.
So you know how that works.
I knew how it worked. It changed since when I did it in the 90s, because that was corded and it was film and a lot of different things. But still, the concept of camera trapping was, I learned from the best. So it didn't take long to kind of, knock the rust off and go to the digital world. It's a lot easier to shoot camera trapping with digital, no cords. I mean, we spent our lives, burying cords, which is difficult. So yeah, I could go back to that and, buy some cameras, buy some equipment, get it in the field. And now I had, something to do,
That's
I was
awesome.
like, stay. And, I didn't do it thinking about doing the book. It was just, I'm going to get more in touch with what I have in my backyard. I live in an amazing place. Typically when I come back from a trip, my cameras would go in the closet. I'm in the garden. I have a, wonderful garden that I love, and tons of aloes and agaves, and so it just takes work. But now it was time to get the cameras out and get in the field and do something local.
And you must have been surprised, or maybe you weren't, with what you found out there, because you did 2 watering holes, I think you said.
Yes. I mean, we're a dry area. We're Ramona, so I knew a great element that's going to bring in some of the wildlife is put some water out there. So I did a little larger water hole on the way down my valley, and then a little area that gets natural water. I ran a drip line to it so I can add a little bit of water there and keep it full of water. And, I wasn't really surprised about what we had there, but being able to capture it, of course, in, the way I like to capture things, was a chore. It was exciting. It always kept me, getting up, going out there and looking at that camera, looking at the back of the camera to see what we got, the week earlier. It's super motivating.
It must be so exciting to see that.
It's very exciting because it's a lot of work. There's a lot of failure. And, once again, you're never seeing these things with your eye. So a lot of people are kind of, how do you get enjoyment out of that? You're not seeing it. Oh, there's enjoyment. You pull up the back of the camera and you see that photo that you've orchestrated, right? You've positioned everything to capture this. The animal certainly had to do his part. He came by at the right time and looked the right way. And, there's a lot of butt shots and a lot of half animals and, a lot of trash photos. So when you get one that all comes together, it really is exhilarating.
And there's some amazing photos. I think everybody in Ramona should have that book on their table.
Thank you. I agree.
On their coffee table. I can't imagine what a treat for Ramona to have you capture that. So where can people get the books? What's the best way?
Thanks. I like to see people that buy the book. So if you see that I'm giving a presentation somewhere or doing a book signing, which I'm doing, I'll be at the Ramona Library. Probably not till next year because they're doing a redo on the roof, so they just kind of canceled me for September. But I'll be in Julian Library on September 17th, and I'll be at the Ramona Art and Wine Festival November 2nd.
Huge.
Yeah, and then of course when Hawk Talk comes around, I guess it's not Hawk Watch. It's called. That's going to be a great venue over in the grasslands. That's January and February. Every Saturday, January and February, I'm definitely going to have a table of books. So if you can't get to these events, you can certainly go to my website, Toft Photo Safaris. Or if you forget that, just remember my name, Roy Toft. You can Google that and you'll get to my website. And there's a link there where I'll send you a book. I have plenty of books, so don't worry about that. And you can also, if you want it signed, just go ahead and send me a side note. asking me to sign it, but definitely come to an event if you can.
Well, I'm going to buy a ton of them to pass out to friends.
Yay.
I think it's probably one of the best gifts you could give somebody.
I think, and it was a gift for the community. I priced it, hopefully, really reasonably, because I wanted everyone to have one. Because this is our community that we love. We live here, and I think it's just a great thing to be able to give guests when they come and stay at your house for a week and be proud of this wonderful place that we live, not only from our people, but also our wild, neighbors.
Speaking of which, I love that foreword in your book.
Yeah, by Tim. Yeah.
Who wrote that?
Tim Conley.
Oh my gosh, that
Yeah,
foreword.
he's our honorary mayor.
He is.
Yeah.
That foreword was unbelievable.
Yeah,
I was wondering, yeah.
Yeah, so I asked Tim because I think of him as Mr. Ramona because he's out and about in the community.
Yeah.
And I really wanted that community connection for the forward. Yeah, him talking about, driving up the hill, you that change, you're coming up the hill and you're coming to Ramona and you feel like you're not driving 30 minutes from San Diego or 40 minutes from San Diego, you're going back 40 years in time.
Says it so well.
Yeah.
So well. And then you add the photos and can't thank you enough. Ramona is so lucky to have you. And I hate to say good for COVID, but I'm glad it worked out.
Silver
Some
lining.
positive things.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks for coming. Thank you for watching us on Discover Ramona. Looking forward to seeing you next time.